Hey y'all, it's Nancy the Handy Scandy. Welcome back for another crafty venture. I am going to be making a Father's Day card. It's going to be sweet and simple. We're going to be using this Fox Family clear stamp set as well as a slimline die called Connected Bubbles. I'll also be bringing in the wonky stitched rectangle dies, and I have a card base and a card panel cut at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I also have this bold watercolor panel, and I actually created that for an episode of Saturday Morning Makes, and I will have that link downstairs. You can hop over and see how this was made. See what else I made on Saturday Morning Makes this weekend. So I start by cutting out the black frame with the connected bubbles, and then I kind of audition that die. Boy, words are hard again. Here we go. I audition the die on the watercolor panel to see what part of it I actually want to cut out, and then I trim it down and run it through my Gemini Junior, and this is what we have. So I glue down the black frame with the Barely Arts glue. It's one of my favorite liquid glues. In fact, as far as liquid glues, it's probably the favorite. Yeah. But I glue that down where I want it on the 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch panel. Now remember, this is a slimline die, so you can place it wherever you want. And so I chose the little shapes that I was most enamored with and that I wanted to feature on this card. And then I also started paper piecing all of the bits and pieces and the semicircles and ellipses that were cut out of the watercolor panel. Now I set the frame aside. I can use that for something else. This would definitely be another 2 for situation if I were so inclined, but on this day I did not. But I still have that frame that I can go back and maybe add the black pieces to, and we'll see if we can't make a card out of that someday. But again, just piecing all of those different pieces in their appropriate spots on the frame, and just going back and forth and getting all the little bits and pieces until it's completely filled in, and it's just really pretty. And like I said, if you'd like to see how I made that panel, just jump on over to my when we're done here, and you can see I did use some Lindy's. I have a variety of Lindy's and just had a good time creating lots of different backgrounds and things. Now once I get everything paper pieced back into the frame onto the card panel, I run it through my Gemini Junior again using the wonky stitch rectangle die. And I had kind of a hard time with this part because I didn't want to throw those little half circles away. Ultimately I set them aside and we'll figure out what to do with them down the road, but I think I may throw them away, which is really hard for me. But then I audition the panel on the card base just to make sure that I'm liking where that's going. And I like the white space. Clean and simple really isn't my jam, but I am loving it in this particular situation. And struggled a little bit by not filling in the white space, but ultimately I did it. Which is what makes it simple, right? The clean and simple, but this is very much sweet and simple. So you can see that I put the panel in my Misty, and I used my VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, and I stamped out the sentiment as well as all the trees and hit them with the heat tool to emboss that black embossing powder, which I believe is from Ink on 3. I think this one is Ink on 3. You can use any black embossing powder that you have. And of course, if you get any of those stray bits, you want to use a paintbrush, a stiff small paint brush to knock all those little stray bits away. Also make sure that you use some sort of anti-static tool to put down on your cardstock before you stamp and pour out that embossing powder. That will prevent at least most of those strays, if not all of them, depending on the powder that you use. And then of course I stamped out this little cutie and his baby, and they're camping and making their marshmallows, probably to go on some s'mores. I just want to create a whole story in my head. But I stamped and colored them up with my Olo markers. I sped that up by about 8 times because I know a lot of people like to see them come to life, but I'm no colorist, so I will rarely walk y'all through what I do when I'm coloring. But at this point, I am auditioning these guys in many different places in many different ways, trying to make it look like what I have in my head. ultimately it doesn't work. The resolution, I don't know what it is to make it look like what I actually had in my head. I'll figure that out down the road, but for now, I decided I would just go ahead and cut them apart from the rest of their little scene, off the grass and whatever else was a part of the scene. And then I lifted them up on some foam tape and put them down where I thought they looked best, and put the fire as close to them as I could. It is outside the frame, which that doesn't bother me. I don't mind when something interrupts the frame. To me, that makes it more dynamic and interesting. So I used my Barely Arts glue to put a bunch of dots down in different places up in that night sky. And I used the glow-in-the-dark stars from This Calls for Confetti. And that finished off my card. I lifted the whole panel up on some 1-inch double-sided foam tape and put it down onto the card base, and we are done. That is absolutely adorable. That watercolor panel creates the most beautiful and dynamic night sky, as well as the scenery behind them. I mean, I can just see the whole thing going down out there in the woods with this sweet little fox dad and his baby. And another card down. So guys, tell me what you think. Are you making Father's Day cards? It's right around the corner. So I hope that if you have a father in your life, you've already got that done or you're working on it. And I hope that everybody has a wonderful day. Thank you so much for spending your time with me this morning. I pray that you would hit that subscribe button and hit the like button as well. And leave me a comment downstairs. You know I love to meet with you down there. And until next time, y'all, this is Nancy, the Handy Scandy. Mwah. I'm out.